Welcome to the Big Change the Film interview series, and my name is Jason Cohen. I personally have lost over 120 pounds, and every week I chat with inspiring individuals who've also lost significant amounts of weight, hear their stories, and pass along some of that inspiration to others. Including today's guest and myself, the total pounds lost is now up to 11,695 pounds. If you've been enjoying this interview series, one way that you can help to support what I'm doing is to write a review on iTunes to let others know that you've enjoyed it and what to expect. This helps others find out about the interview series and hear more of these stories. Also, if you'd like to help in a financial way, I do sell t-shirts through the website bigchangethefilm.com, and 100% of those t-shirt sales goes towards the production of this podcast and the film. This week's guest is Mike Meltzer, who lives in Los Angeles, California. Mike told me that he grew up overweight, he was always teased about his weight, and as an adult, he became a bit of a junk food vegan. He developed type 2 diabetes. He at one point weighed over 300 pounds, and then around 8 years ago, he decided to change his diet, switch to a whole food plant-based diet. He's since reversed his diabetes. His A1C was previously over 8, it's now 4.1. He told me that the last time he was at this weight was whenever he was 12, and he feels better and happier than ever. We have a great conversation about his journey, and thanks so much for watching. I'm here with Mike Meltzer, and we got connected after I reached out to him and seeing his Forks Over Knives article. And first off, Mike, just thanks for taking a little bit of time to chat with me. Maybe we could just start off with, where you're from and a little bit about yourself.
Sure thing. I grew up in New York in the suburbs, about 25 miles out of New York City. And I was kind of always a heavy kid since I was young. That wasn't all that common back in those days. But that was just sort of my life. And then when I was 12, I was like walking through down the street past a kosher butcher market, a chicken market. There's all these blood and feathers and everything. And I'm like, nah, not doing that anymore. No more with the dead animals in me. So I went home, and my pretty conventional mom, I told her, she's like, what? Because vegetarians, that was not common back in those days at all. I said, yeah, that's the deal from here on out. And so I was vegetarian since the age of 12. Finally, I was still kind of dealing with weight and issues like that. And finally went vegan in '06, cut out dairy and eggs and all that stuff. And that was a big hallelujah from my body. It was like very pleased by that. And, but I'd had problems. I'd been diagnosed as diabetic some years before, and they tried me on medication. It was like, this isn't really cutting it. I put on weight. I was not feeling good, and I just kind of went, nah. And I started going to the gym more and working out more. But it wasn't really until 2010 that I figured what everything was that was going on, that I was indeed diabetic, but I got lucky enough to connect with a doctor that knew instantly how to reverse it. So that was in April 2010, and Dr. Alona Poldi, who she and her husband had worked for Dr. John McDougall, and pretty much knew the whole deal. They're featured in Forks Over Knives in the movie as well. Highly recommend it.
Wow. And then,
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, you talked about, growing up a fat kid, and then you had the experience with the butcher. What did did you, after you decided you were no longer eating meat, did you begin to lose weight, or did you continue to gain weight and continue to be overweight, for the rest of your childhood?
Still kind of a heavy kid, and was teased a bit, even though I was pretty big for my age, because I was like 5'11" in 6th grade. So I was like one of the big kids early. But still, kids being kids, they're going to tease in summer camp and all that. But it took a while. I didn't really change the weight thing just from being vegetarian. or vegan because I was still eating a lot of garbage.
Yeah, I think I saw you mention in the article that you were a bit of a junk food vegan.
For sure.
What do you mean by that? What did that look like?
Well, it meant I could eat anything as long as it wasn't from an animal. So I would eat as a vegan fake cheese, a lot of shit with oil, stuff like that. Just the usual processed garbage that they're selling a lot of just to get people to transition. But Dr. Bolde said, okay, here's what you don't want to eat. And I gave her a diary of everything I was eating. She said, yeah, you probably want to avoid this and this and this. And I started dropping weight immediately, 2.5 pounds a week. And I dropped about 20, 22 pounds in the few months I worked with her. We had done labs right before I started with her. My HA1C was 8.6, which was seriously diabetic. But she wasn't concerned. She was like, okay, we got this. And I just did what she said and ate the way. I ate a lot of brown rice, a lot. That was like my staple. And within about 3.5 months, we did another lab and boom, my A1C was down to like 6.9. And she said, okay, just keep it up, stay in touch. And you're doing it. So now, as of a couple of years ago, my A1C was down at 4.1, which is below most normal people who've never been diabetic.
Wow.
So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. And then I think I saw in there that you were diagnosed originally with type 2 diabetes in the early 90s. Diabetes these days is something that, people are familiar with. It's a common thing, but
Right.
I'm wondering what that was like living back in the 90s with type 2 diabetes and also with the level of understanding that people had of the disease back then.
Well, the level of understanding medically and not was basically way insufficient. Because the doctors just wanted to give you this pill or that pill, whether it was glipizide or Avandia. They had me on for a bit before that was pulled from the market. And I'm like, yeah, forget that, in the trash. That kind of stuff. And none of it helped me. So I was like, later for this. But it's what most doctors still see as a reasonable course of treatment. But it's not. Because anybody can reverse type 2 just by eating properly. That's it. A little bit of exercise doesn't hurt, but it's really the food. As Dr. McDougall says, Dr. Clapper says, it's the food. So simple.
And then for somebody who's maybe, not super familiar with what life is like with type 2 diabetes, can you give me an idea of that? Maybe, daily struggles, things that,
Sure.
Maybe didn't operate properly with your body, things like that?
Well, a lot of things, besides just the medical tests, were problematic. The doctors would look at the labs and go, problem here. But really, it's all of the side effecty stuff, which for me didn't even kick in until a couple of years after I had reversed it. Like, I don't know if you can still see it, but I have a couple of scars here. And that's because I had carotid artery blockages of 85, 90%, which I found out about 3 years after I reversed the diabetes. They said, yeah, that's just from all the years of eating the crap, vegan and vegetarian. Because even as a vegetarian, I was still eating eggs and cheese and all that crap that I liked. And I finally, said, no, can't do that. But that was working with Dr. Bolde and learning that stuff. And if you read Dr. McDougall as well, you really learn the whole ticket of what's up with the diabetes. But I have a bunch of side effects from having been diabetic that are still stuff I'm dealing with. Kidney disease. This required 4 surgeries to clean out the plaque, which otherwise likely could have caused strokes. And I've heard of other people having strokes from that. I have some neuropathy, especially of the feet. And I've been working with a chiropractor's office, and they have a treatment that I found that actually works, which is amazing, because that's very unknown. And they're like the only people doing it. But the kidney disease, the carotids, all that stuff, bad news.
Yeah, I think
the first thing I really found out about it, I was visiting with my family in late '09. They said, "Oh, your walking is kind of funny." And I'm like, huh. So when I got back home in LA, I just got lucky. I was just clicking through channels, and I found Dr. Neil Barnard doing a speech on PBS about reversing diabetes with a vegan diet. And I went, huh, that works for me. So I watched it. I called his office, read his book right away, and they referred me to Dr. Pulde here in LA. And she and her husband are now medical directors for the Whole Foods chain. So they work with those folks. In fact, they have a new book with the CEO of Whole Foods, John Mackey. It explains a lot of this stuff and how they work with people to reverse heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, and all these issues that they can do just with the food. It's really the whole thing.
Wow, it's incredible. So, you know, I know you you had some differing times in there where for sections of time you did one thing as far as diet goes, or you cut out other things. As far as the path that you're on now,
right?
Did you have kind of a rock bottom moment, or a moment that you decided like I've got to change this up, and decided to go full board with it?
Yeah. It was really after I'd been visiting my family out in the desert here, and they had remarked about my moving, walking and stuff. I said, okay, I got to get this figured out. I was also noticing a little problem in the vision in one eye, which is another issue, which is retinopathy, very common diabetic side effect. And that can be treated, but it's a lot better and easier and quicker to treat if you've reversed the diabetes first. So all of my doctors, they're like blown away by the fact that my A1C is so low. My diabetes is literally reversed now for nearly going on 8 years. But yeah, I had seen the whole thing with Dr. Barnard, and I'm a Buddhist, and I was chanting about this, and I then flicking channels, I came across Dr. Barnard. I went, boom, bam, and then just made a couple of calls, ordered a book, got it going, made a phone call, went down and visited Alona and Matt at their office in Hollywood. Picked up their book and made an appointment and got going. Totally doable for anyone with A1Cs that are too high.
And I'm curious how you feel now today versus before.
Well, generally a lot better. I mean, I've gone from about 320 to 167, which is about my 12-year-old weight, which I had not seen since I was 12. So that's a long time. Long time. And I'm happy to be there and wearing sizes of clothes, and just replaced all my underwear because it was not fitting. It's like in the trash, you're out. And so that's cool. That's all a good thing. And just in general, I find as a much thinner person, people react to me a lot different. Just like the general prejudices people don't even realize they have towards heavier people. I don't know much about your story if you were a lot heavier. But generally, I've found that big difference between 320, 260, 220, and 167. Huge, huge, huge difference. With the opposite sex or whatever. Just in general, just relating with people. Huge difference. And people aren't aware of that. That kind of sort of ingrown discrimination that most of us have and have grown up with.
And how is your mental state changed throughout this whole process?
Well, I'm a lot happier about things. Right now, I've been battling this damn flu for over a month now, which is brutal. So I'm resting a lot and just taking it easy. But once I get through with that, it's just a whole different thing. Whole different thing.
And then, I know for a lot of people, it's, some of those same things, there are some themes that oftentimes happen for people in terms of, the dairy, the eggs, the pizza, the ice cream, the cheese. Those things are really difficult sometimes, and they're oftentimes the last thing to go. What did you do? I know for some people, they try and find, alternatives or ways to, kind of reminisce, whether that's, banana ice cream or that's nutritional yeast. Did you find that there was anything helpful throughout that process?
Well, I still kind of do a lot of monkeying around and looking at recipes on Facebook and trying different stuff, but I kind of know what I can eat and what I can't. It's like, no, I don't get like a vegan slice of pizza anymore unless I'm really up for a cheat. That's very, very rare. I just don't have the appetite for it. I don't care.
And I have to think, being in LA, I don't know if you mentioned that earlier, but you're in LA. The options out there have to be endless in terms of food.
Not endless, but better than most places. I mean, there's a bunch of restaurants I can just order stuff from. Like there's a whole bunch of vegan Thai places that will customize and do no oil. Really nice, and deliver.
Nice. And then, I know you mentioned your A1C levels. Did you have any other markers as far as your health that changed, in this process as well?
Not really. That A1C was really the key. And that's the one that most doctors look at and go, some doctors, I'll go in to see them and they're like, oh, what was your blood sugar? This. I'm like, yeah, I don't check that. I haven't in years. Because my A1C is 4.1, so it's like, what's the point? It's reversed. It's gone. I mean, I'm sure if I started eating crappy again, I could get it back. Not planning on it.
And then, I know you're under the weather. I can hear it in your voice now. But
Sure.
But as far as activity, is there anything that you've been able to do now that you just simply weren't able to do before, or anything that you've begun to enjoy now?
I mean, when I'm feeling better, I'll be going to the gym 3 times a week. I do physical therapy because I just have a lot of stiff spots that they work on and get better. And they're all like highly trained, really good, and all that. But not a whole lot. When my dog was alive, we would still go hiking up in the canyons here. And he used to love that. But he would always kind of zip down the trail, then turn around and wait for me. That was kind of cool.
And then, looking back now, obviously the big thing is, your type 2 diabetes has been reversed. But,
Right.
is there anything about this process that's maybe surprised you, or you just simply didn't expect was going to happen when you first started it?
Well, when I first started working with Dr. Polday, I was like, whoa, if this works, I'm down with it. Totally down with it. And that was it. So I'm like, it worked. And just keep doing it. So almost 8 years later, I started in April 2010. This was just about a year before the Forks Over Knives movie came out even. So as the knowledge was just starting to get in the mainstream, just starting. And then I had another vocal cord surgery, a second one, back in August 2015, because when they did one of my carotids, they nicked the vocal cord nerve, which is a drag. So I went for another surgery so they can kind of push it back in place and make it functional a bit anyway. And after that, I was like, okay, I want to take off this last 50 pounds, because I was at about 222, something like that. And I'm like, so I called up True North and I got on the phone with them and I worked with Dr. Clapper doing like a modified juice fast. And within a year, I was down 50 pounds. I'm like, works for me, because I was just plateaued and stuck. So, yeah.
And if anybody's hearing, that obviously we're not medical professionals, but were there any kind of highlights of that process that you would share that you found worked really well for you?
Most of it was just hopping on the scale and going, damn, under 200 for the first time in forever. And then getting on the scale again recently, because the one good thing this flu did is took off the last 15 pounds. So I hop on the scale, I'm in the 160s. I'm like, I don't even remember the last time I did that.
It's one heck of a weight loss program, the flu.
Yeah, it really is. It's a nasty flu. It's horrible.
So if you were having a conversation with somebody who's at the beginning of this journey, who's trying to make that next step, what might you say to that person?
Basically, just do what I did. If you don't have the control, go to True North for a week or 10 days. Do it that way. If you want, or go to McDougall for a 10-day or something. And, but people can do it the way I did it. I didn't leave my house. I didn't go anywhere. I was working with Alona on email mostly, and I had, I think, 3 total visits, maybe a total of 4 hours. And of course, insurance is clueless, although I guess Kaiser is starting to come around. But you just do it. And people can't really go and see Alona or Matt unless they work for Whole Foods, because they're so swamped with their 90,000 plus people, and who knows what's going to happen with Amazon now.
Wow. And then if you could go back in time and have a conversation with yourself at the beginning of this journey, and give yourself some words of encouragement or something, what would that be?
Just start it 20, 25, 30 years earlier. That's it. Just do it now. Read McDougall when it came out in the 80s and go, yeah, let's do that. Cool.
Yeah. And then, if people are hearing your story and are connecting, resonating with what you're saying, what's the best way for people to find out more about you, what you're doing, and connect with you?
Well, I'm on Facebook under Mike Meltzer. That's a good way. I'm in a lot of the vegan and McDougall groups and recipe groups, things like that, fat-free vegan. So I'm easy enough to find on Facebook, and most people, if I see that they're interested or send me a message, happy to help out. But there's still very few MDs, typical MDs, who are hip to this way of doing things, whether it's for diabetes or heart disease or RA or whatever. So you can't depend on finding a doctor. I mean, I know of one cardiologist in LA who knows about this stuff, who's a vegan. One. And there are a lot of cardiologists in LA. And the cardios are getting hip to it fairly quick, because their recent past president has been vegan for like 10 years, Kim Williams. And he's spoken about it quite a bit. And he's been quoted as saying, there's cardiologists who are vegan and those who haven't read the research. Because the research is all there. But I can recommend books to people. And if you're lucky enough to live in a place where there are a couple of the few MDs that are hip to this shit, then you can connect with them or travel there, or travel to McDougall or True North in Santa Rosa. But it's few and far between.
Well, I'll include the your contact info in the show notes. And Mike, I really appreciate the time. Congratulations on everything. And I'll look forward to catching up with you soon.
Sounds great. I always appreciate being able to share, help other people out with this stuff.
Awesome. Well, have a great night.
Thanks, you too.